The well, it was an amazing family reunion, and it was. I knew that I'd see a lot of people that I knew, who many of whom I knew would know Johanna, and many that I had no idea would know her. So it was a really beautiful tribute to her life. It was very heartfelt. It was funny. It was beautiful. It was touching. It was a really poignant send-off for an incredibly potent woman, and I'm so glad I didn't miss it. That I happened to be in town, which I've gone a lot, and I'm so glad I was here for it because I just wouldn't have wanted to miss it, especially after being here and finding out how much better it was even than I could have imagined. So it was really lovely.
That's great.
Well, I was helping set up in the beginning, so it was really nice to see everyone that I know who's part of the extended family. And Johanna, among other things, was my astrologer, and so she gave me fabulous PR karma, and there was this amazing article about this book I wrote in the Register Guard this morning. And when they told me it was going to come out today, it was like, yes, Johanna. Register Guard, your memorial service, Super Bowl. It's a Johanna trifecta. We used to watch duck football together and text each other when she couldn't come over anymore. Yeah, oh, the service, right. The pictures were the highlight to me because they were all those images of her that just brought her back. And I thought the speakers were wonderful. The music was wonderful. But mostly everybody here loved Johanna, and that's the single most important thing. We were all here to celebrate this incredibly generous, kind, wonderful woman that it's hard to imagine life could contain.
Well, the memorial service for Johanna today, it was beautiful. It was very touching. I'm filled with feelings in my heart just thinking about it. It was lengthy. It was at least 2.5 hours, and there were hundreds of people there. And what I learned, it was just how much we all felt Johanna's love, and that was just really touching for me knowing her socially and professionally as an astrologer, and in our group, which also included, whenever we, the astrologers, would meet, it was also a potluck, and sometimes it was at Johanna and Peterson's house, and it was, so just for me to learn more about Johanna's life and what an incredible impact it had on the community of Eugene was really great today.
Very cool.
The service today was amazing to walk in and see the large number of people that her life touched. And although I saw it working with her on a daily basis, it's just when you walk in a room and see that, it's just kind of overwhelming.
Wonderful. It's so wonderful, to see all the loving energy everywhere and all of the beautiful flowers everyone brought. I thought the really interesting part was, as I arrived, from all the corners of Eugene, people were walking with flowers towards the shed, and you knew they were one of us, that we were all together. And the boat was so amazing, and what they're going to do. Obviously, Johanna, planned a lot of this, so she would have been very pleased. But it was just her. It was so her. So it was like having her back again and feeling her around me.
Yeah, Johanna was a powerhouse. Johanna was a force of nature in a human body. She was like a combination of all of the elements in human form, and she was not somebody to be messed with, and so it was really, it was best if you just loved her as much as she loved you, and she made that very easy. And she was wise beyond her years. She embodied some kind of wisdom that she was one of the people that I would go to when I wanted counsel for transition times in my life, and the kind of person who I could completely surrender to her guidance and trust that it was coming from an authentically deep and genuine place of knowing things that are beyond most people's awareness, or at least most people might censor the kinds of things that she would just blurt out without giving it a second thought. So,
Johanna was an amazing cook. She was an amazingly generous, kind person. She was incredibly bright and articulate and insightful. And if she gave you a reading, she didn't pull any punches. That's the best planet in your chart. You're going to have to do this. I mean, she paid absolutely no attention to being timid or polite about telling you what you needed to know. And when she turned 50, she had this big party over at Condon School, and there was a talent show, which was terrifying to me, but I lip-synced Over the Rainbow, and then it was over. I was like, no, I want to do it again. But for her birthday, I gave her the gift of being her librarian, because I worked across the street from the library. So for 18 years, I was the one who found books for us to read and found authors, and we'd go, oh, when's the new Maisie coming out, or when's... And so we shared a love of words through a lot of different places.
That's great. About Johanna.
Well, Johanna, I mean, professionally, I think that's, you know, I knew her as kind of the most famous photographer in Eugene, certainly the most active, I would guess, in terms of doing readings, and just the impact that had going out in the community was just interesting to see that today, and to kind of, and just being there and thinking, wow, you know, a lot of these people probably, in addition to being her friends, were her clients, and just that was just, I think, really just a piece of how Johanna touched people, but it was a really important piece.
Johanna was generosity itself, and love, and giving and caring. She loved tea, and we would sit and have tea. It was kind of a ritual in and of itself. The ritual of giving and celebrating was wonderful, and we enjoyed doing that together. Watching our kids grow up, our grandkids and my kids grow up, and how they changed. And she loved children, being surrounded by children, and just such an amazing person. And she, you know, she had her bad days like we all did, and I saw that being with her, but she was never cruel, never mean, always, you know, even on her bad days, was very caring.
Johanna is literally larger than life. So much love, so much attention to everyone. Her depth and sense of perception was so wonderful, and just a font of wisdom and light. It was just a pleasure to know her, and we're very lucky to have had her with us on this journey. A guide. Johanna Mitchell was a guide. Somebody I took counsel from, and, you know, consulted once a year for my solar return, which means my birthday, in case you don't know. And just so full of wisdom and connection. And it was, you know, more than an astrologer. She was sort of a counselor as well, using the stars as a guide. So that, you know, was really wonderful. Also, she was a wonderful neighbor. So in our, you know, neighborhood picnics and stuff, we worked on some of the food for the picnics, and she was just the community heart. You know, she just would always get the right thing going, more than I ever knew, even. I mean, I didn't know half of what she did, and.
At the time that I, you know, officially met Johanna in summer of 2010, I'd been, you know, quietly studying astrology on my own, and, you know, at that time it was kind of a taboo interest. Like, I didn't know who to talk to about it. And I think by then I had, you know, sat in the very back row at, you know, Johanna's annual lecture in the beginning of 2010. But, you know, when I saw her at, you know, she just happened to show up at my book arts meeting. You know, here we are doing our, you know, innocent little bookmaking exercises, and gosh, I can finally talk about this interest of mine with somebody. And she introduced me to other astrologers in town, and that was a really great step in my learning to be an astrologer?
Well, she was she was lots of things to lots of people, and to me, she was a friend, and I think the primary connection that I have with her is going to see her as an astrologer. I mean, she was a friend that I saw in other contexts, but the deep connection that I really treasure with her is the part of her that was an astrologer who could offer assistance and guidance, and to do it in a way that was very. She always provided exactly what I didn't know I needed, and yet I was so relieved when it finally appeared.
Well, Johanna, to me, I think the thing I'll always remember is that I moved to Eugene in 2002, and as an astrologer, I quickly got referred. The Eugene Astrology Salon had an outreach looking for new members, and this was, I think it was December 2nd, 2002. It was at the Fool's Paradise over kind of by the Amtrak train station. And so I may have met Johanna that night. I don't remember for certain, but I'm a specialist in the Destiny card system, and I told the people of the salon, I said, I have this specialty, and I'd like to give a presentation on the Destiny cards to the salon. And it was a number of years before it came to pass, and it had been scheduled once, and that didn't happen with the Sunday night potluck we usually have. And then on January 22nd of 2006, I think 13 years ago, I gave the presentation on the cards to the Eugene salon at Johanna's house in her living room with Peterson there, and it was very well received, and it was just, I'll just always remember, to me, in my imagination at least, this was this ancient field, the Destiny cards, being introduced to another ancient field, to astrologers, and the place where it happened was at Johanna Mitchell's house in Eugene, Oregon.
Very cool.
She was a guide. I mean, I relied on her when I had to make a decision like when should I publish the book or when should I launch this website or something like that. She would sit down and she'd say, okay, what do you want? And I'd go, blip, blip, blip. And she'd go, boom, this is the date. So, and she was my friend. You know, I saw her 5 times a week forever. You know, just little, you know, here's your bread, or what soup you're making, and I'll make a different kind. And it was just, she was my neighbor and she was my friend.
What's the best memory?
She played such an amazing role in my life. I was going through a very trying marriage and decided I needed to get out. And she was my angel, and she helped me do that, to get out of that abusive relationship and to move forward with my life. And helped me every step of that way. She even went to court with me. And it was just such a blessing to have her at the time that I did in my life every day. And I just can't ever repay what she did for me. And Peterson, too. He was right there through all of that for us.
Well, I don't know if it's the greatest memory, but it's the one that came up first. So the last session that we had in person, she laughed. She looked at my chart and she goes, you know, this is the first time I can tell you good news. So there was a rough patch of about 8 years, and she goes, the skies have finally cleared and things are going to turn around. So at that point, she flew away.
Well, I mean, she had a really big life, and I was, you know, part of only a little bit of it. I mean, you know, the parts that I liked was, you know, seeing the pictures of her when she was about my age, you know, when she was, you know, in her 30s, 40s, you know, younger woman, because that would have been actually when my grandmother knew her. You know, my grandmother actually was into astrology in the early 80s, and we found, you know, her astrology binder with, you know, Johanna Mitchell letterhead, you know, from the early 80s after, you know, my grandmother died and we cleaned out her house. But, you know, my grandmother, you know, never saw fit to talk about that with any of her grandchildren. And then by the time that I got into the astrology, she had dementia and couldn't talk about it, you know. So when I see, young Johanna, that's like that. Well, that's the Johanna that my grandmother knew. So, and this was actually a necklace of my grandmother's I picked out for the event. But
Very cool.
Actually, I think my best memory of Johanna is, like, my most fun memory of Johanna is when, it was relating to Slug Queen stuff, but my best memory of her, and probably Slug Queen and Eugene Celebration stuff, but my best memory of her was when, it was not that long ago, when I had to drop some things off at the house, and I had an opportunity to just be there with her, just her and I, just the two of us, and just the way in which she was so incredibly present and so welcoming of the company in that moment. And I had other things that I was supposed to go and do, and I just was like, nope, this is it, I'm staying. And I just blew off the rest of the things that were on the calendar and on the schedule, and I think I made one phone call to kind of cancel things, and I just hung out with her to just talk and to listen and to hear the raw authenticity of what she was going through at that moment with her disease and with the prognosis and the transitions and the challenges and then in the midst of it all, just the incredible raw beauty that she carried with her in the struggle and in the surrender to the struggle and the way in which she could be so forthcoming in her own experience. And I think that's what really embodied her ability to be there for others, is that she was so personally aware of what was going on for her, and that's what made it possible for her to be so fully aware of what was going on for others. And so it was a really beautiful thing to hold space for her after all those years of her holding space for me, and to have this sort of somewhat of a role reversal in that moment where I got to be the one in that moment who showed up for her after all those countless times where she showed up for me.
Oh, my favorite memory was getting to say goodbye to her in person, and it was just open heart to open heart, just feeling all the love that we shared and all the, we talked about everything from duck football to a certain author, and I would trade every second of that joy to have her around for a day. She was special.
Wow, my best memory with Johanna was it's being in the kitchen, being in her kitchen with her, and it's like that's just the center of the universe. It's like you're making home on earth with Johanna. So there was that ability to just kind of for the home, or to kind of come into orbit around that the hearth of her heart was just that's what I remember is being with her at her house, and just that being welcome, and just the joy and happiness of being with her and being alive.
I think there's so many, but one of my favorites was when she and I, just the two of us, went to go see a Lorena McKennett concert together, because that was some music. We loved sitting and drinking tea and listening to music, and it was a special time because we were sharing something we both enjoyed, and just spending that time together, and I think that she always made you feel special, but that's something I'll always treasure.
Well, like I was saying, introducing me to the, other people who shared the interest of astrology. I mean, and I guess during Johanna's life, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't, able to be as open about it as Johanna was. So, but she gave me a good example for how to, share something that matters to you. And, hopefully I can grow more in that direction as I get older. So.
Do you have any last thoughts you'd like to say? Anything to?
I'm gonna miss her. There's no way to replace who she is in my life and who she is in so many other people's lives, and you know, even those of us who didn't really see her as much as so many other people had the opportunity to see her, or chose to take that opportunity to see her more. She touched so many people's lives so deeply in such small increments of time, and I'm going to miss her very much, and there's no way to replace that, and and that's going to be very true for an entire huge community beyond who showed up today. She's a good teacher for how to die well, and I'll remember her for all the gifts, especially that.
Fantastic.
I love you, honey. Stick around.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just thank you and safe journey, Godspeed, and we love you.
I'm going to miss her. I'm going to miss her guidance and her love. But I know she's here, and I won't be a stranger, Peterson. I promise.
Love you, Johanna. Fly free. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
You know, I hope that she and my grandmother meet up. I hope I can make them proud at some point.